clear. I'm just going to go with it anyway. I don't really know what the rule is.
Well, Edward, we are trying to count noses, and if we're only counting people who are resident members of this committee, there are 5 of us, and 3 of them are here. So
right.
that's 3 out of 5. That's a quorum.
Ready? All right, thank you, everyone. It is 10:35 a.m. I apologize for starting a few minutes late, but this is the Thursday, May 19th, 2022 Environment Committee meeting of the City of Rehoboth Beach. I am going to do a roll call. Mr. Charlie Garlow.
Present.
Eric Seward is absent. Heather Metz, absent. Joseph Vesio.
Here.
You, Mary Peck.
Here.
Nettie Green.
Here.
And the chair is here. So we have a quorum. I'd like to mention Catherine Bergwin, who has been a part of the committee, I think, since the inception, and has provided a lot of good service to the city, has had to resign from the committee due to health reasons. So we thank her for her service and wish her the best. We've got 2 sets of meeting minutes for approval, April 21st, 2022, and the February 24th, 2022. Those minutes were emailed. Does anyone have any comments, changes? No? Well, with that, I accept a motion to adopt.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Charlie. A second?
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to approve the meeting minutes of April 21st and February 24th of this year. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, thank you. We do not have any correspondence identified. In first order of business, old business is item A, provide an update on and discussion regarding the straw-free initiative. Nettie, I'll let you run with this one.
Okay, I hope you all saw the description that I wrote up, the suggestion to the commissioners on April the 28th. Did everybody see that? Okay. I mean, it's all pretty laid out there. Is this what we'd like to send or not? Are there any suggestions, or I could rewrite it, or?
Nettie, if I may, I have an update on this topic. I believe that
Okay.
was one of the things I was assigned the last time around, which is that there is a bill pending before the state legislature in Dover to get rid of styrofoam cups and styrofoam clamshells and plastic straws, except
Oh, it
when requested.
includes plastic straws. Okay, I didn't know that.
Right, and plastic stir strips and all sorts of fun. And they had a hearing yesterday at which
Folks, I'm just going to pause for 5 minutes, excuse me. Just remember that the mics are live.
Okay, well, I'll stop speaking and we'll continue when Edward gets back.
I was really excited about that, but who knows? It may be stuck in the house. We need to deal with.
My apologies. But Charlie, go ahead.
Just to finish the sentence, that was in the Senate. It was favorably remarked upon by the chairperson. It looks like it's going to do well in the Senate. As the House may not be quite as easy, but that may very well take care of the problem or the situation for us and all the residents and citizens of Delaware. If you would want to pause and see if that takes care of it for us, it might save us this effort of having to debate or whatever on the excellent work that you put together there, Nettie. What do you think?
I think it would be good to go on and the city of Rehoboth go on and say this is what we're going to do. I do give a suggestion that this take effect. I'm looking.
Nettie, for the benefit of the public, would you just read that last paragraph?
Okay. As a committee, we strongly suggest that the Rehoboth Beach Commissioners legislate an ordinance that within the city of Rehoboth Beach, Both plastic and paper straws will be offered on request only, effective January 2023. We suggest that the Environment Committee and commissioners continue to educate restaurant personnel as to straws when we are in a restaurant or bar. A complimentary sticker with the seal of Rehoboth Beach City Commission could be given for compliance before January 2023. A fine should be imposed by non-compliers, including national chain restaurants, after January the 1st, 2023. A letter preparing businesses for this legislation should be made by at least October the 1st, 2022. And then there were examples of other city, state, hotel, national chain restaurants, cruise lines, airlines, supermarkets that have banned straws. And I mean, straws only on request. And so I think these have encouraged the state, and we could encourage the state by not being the tail that wags, but being the leaders in this. So I move that we do it.
Charlie, the hearing that you were at, was the bill had been introduced in this session, or?
Yes, it's SB 134, sponsored principally by Senator Parody and others, and the hearing was held yesterday. That's correct.
And also, this is not, I mean, as far as enforcement, not until January 2023. And maybe the state will already have this in effect by then. But we will be taking the leadership. I don't see that it hurts anything for us to do this and to start giving out stickers and for people that are getting into it. Would make it easier for the state.
Any other thoughts?
Are you think, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. I was just going to say that because the state legislature is only in session till June, we'll know fairly soon what they're going to do with that bill. So that could, you know, if we want to wait and see whether it gets passed and tailor our approach accordingly, it's not, I guess my point is we wouldn't have to wait that long.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. If we can hold off until we see the results of that bill, and then we could always draft another letter to businesses warning them that this is coming down the pike and that, you know, Rehoboth is behind it, et cetera.
I guess I don't see the benefit of waiting. We have talked about this for probably 3 years. And I think there is no benefit in waiting. I mean, we would only be encouraging the whole thing. So I don't see the benefit of waiting.
My suggestion on that topic is there is a benefit of waiting, much as I appreciate your efforts and all of our efforts for the last 3 years on this topic, in that we have a number of other matters we're going to be taking to the commissioners, and this might be one which they'd stub their toe on and would maybe slow down some of the other topics that we have. That's the only reason I'd suggest waiting. It's only a short time. It's not like it's going to be for 3 years.
We've got some members of the public here, so I'd like to open it up if anyone has any comments on this topic. You might need to make sure that that's on. And if you could just state your name and address.
Yeah, Carolyn Diefendorfer, 113 Newcastle. I kind of agree, don't wait, because there are only so many voting meetings that the commissioners have, and it would have to go to a vote. And if the state doesn't do anything, then you guys are in front of it. And if they do, no harm, no foul.
what's the pleasure of the committee?
Well, we don't have a motion, it sounds like to me, but I could make a motion that we appreciate Nettie's proposal and her draft, but we postpone action on it for no more than 2 months.
Eddie, you're more than welcome to make a motion if you'd
Oh,
like.
well, he just made a motion, so
Yeah,
is
I-
anybody
I-
seconding it? I mean,
While appreciate Charlie's motion, it's unnecessary. If we take no action, that's action enough.
That's true.
may I make a motion?
You may.
Okay, I move that we accept this initiative as stated and that it's considered. I don't think there's much need for discussion at this point. This has gone on for a long time. I've not been, you know, on the wall when the commissioners have been stubbing their toe on it, but I don't know why there's, I think it would just be yes or no. I don't see any need for discussion. It's happening with the state. Why not go ahead and do it? And that's not a good motion. I move that we accept this.
So we've got a motion on the floor to accept the recommendation that was just read by Nettie. Is there a second? I'm sorry, Nettie. We do appreciate your effort, and I'll keep this on the agenda for us to follow up with. And Charlie, you'll keep us up to date on what the state's doing?
Yes, and I withdraw my previous motion, just to make it clean.
Oh, clean. Okay, thank you. Okay, with that, I'm going to skip around the agenda a little bit, if that's okay with everyone. Folks, did you come here for a specific topic? Offshore wind. Offshore wind, okay. Just in general, okay. With that, I'm going to skip the Sustainable Climate Action Plan and go to the gas-powered landscape equipment and use of them in the city of Rehoboth Beach. Who was doing the heavy lifting on this topic?
Mary, do you want to take the first crack, or
Yeah.
should I?
Go ahead. I don't remember where we left off with it.
Yes, in previous meetings, we've had a chance to discuss generally the topic of phasing out gas-powered lawn equipment, not unlike what the city of Lewis, Delaware has done, giving them a significant period to bring forward the sorts of equipment that would be needed to pass that. And so I'd put together a draft paper on that topic, and I shared it again with the members of this committee, just for your convenience. If you want me to read any portion of that, Mr. Chairperson, I would be glad to do so. Mary, would you want to add to that in any way?
No, what was it that you shared with the committee?
A draft of the proposal, which should be in your inbox if you've got your computers there. It should be one entitled Environment Committee Meeting 19 May Agenda. And it says, you may find these draft documents helpful for today's meeting attached.
Right.
And down at the bottom, there were several attachments. Is anybody receiving that? I hope.
I have, I'm looking at it now. Okay, yeah.
Lawn equipment was
Yeah, I
the
think
third
Lawn equipment
document
phase
there.
out.
Linda, I know you and Ann were copied on that. Were these put into the agenda, or it was not soon enough, right?
I didn't get a copy of those, but she didn't put them in.
Okay. For the sake of the public, would you mind reading that?
Sure, I'd be glad to. The draft discussion paper or proposal was that the Rehoboth Beach Environment Committee recommends to the mayor and commissioners of Rehoboth Beach that the city of Rehoboth Beach modify the appropriate code provisions to phase out the purchase and use of gasoline-powered lawn and garden equipment, including but not limited to blowers, mowers, grass, and tree trimming machines. This proposal is to help reduce unwanted noise and air and water pollution. Several residents have shared their objection to these noisy machines. The City of Lewis has adopted a phased-out ban of these kinds of equipment. We recommend that our city adopt a similar program, phasing out the purchase and use of this equipment on the same or similar schedule as the City of Lewis to minimize confusion among affected parties. In 2020, Lewis adopted compliance dates of 2022 and 2025, giving 2-year advance notice. Rehoboth Beach should give a similar advance warning, and then there's a link to a Cape Gazette article on that topic. The City of Rehoboth Beach should show leadership by purchasing and using only clean electric machines for lawn and garden work for use by employees of the city and contractors hired by the city on an accelerated schedule before public compliance is recommended. So that's the draft paper. Any questions?
No, I will admit, I messed up and intended to have the city arborist here to weigh in on the topic, and I failed to do that. So I do apologize, because I very much did want her to weigh in on the topic.
Would you like me to hold any kind of motion until such time as we can have Liz Lingo join us?
I would very much like that, if that's not a problem.
It's fine by me. It's not going anywhere fast, so be glad to hold in abeyance any consideration or motion on this topic.
Any comments from the public? Anyone else? All right, thank you, Charlie. So we'll put this at the top of the agenda for the next meeting. Just to go back to B, the Sustainable Climate Action Plan, I'm still waiting for the mayor to put this on a workshop meeting, so we, as the Environment Committee, get some direction on where to go. So that's a brief update on that. Does anyone have any comments related to that topic? Next is discussion related to offshore wind farms and the potential impacts on coastal Delaware and where we want to take the topic.
I was actually trying to see if we could get somebody from the BOEM to kind of answer our questions about what role, where the city or the citizens can plug in with public comments and questions. And I kind of made a little progress. I have somebody that's sent me an email and said they're going to, forward that request somewhere. I don't know if you wanted, Ed, if you're open to maybe by Zoom, or I don't know if in person somebody could just update us on where the various projects are in the permitting process. And I believe there is something coming up in terms of public hearings and comments that people might want to know about. So.
The BOEM is the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management?
Yes. So as far as the projects that are in the pipeline right now, and the one that's the furthest along, as far as I know, the skipjack, they're being permitted. They're in a permitting process with the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management, and they still haven't reached a point of doing their or getting their environmental assessment approved yet. And so I think a lot of concerns that people might have about impacts on the environment, it would be good to know how the public can comment or ask questions and when. I think a lot of people don't really understand the process and what exactly going on. So I was hoping somebody from that agency would explain it a little better for us.
As a reminder, this committee did have an opportunity to hear from Dr. Willett Kempton from the University of Delaware on this topic, and there will be a forum tomorrow night sponsored by the city of Fenwick Island at the Indian River High School at 6 o'clock, I believe it is. And it's open to the public. Anybody who wants to go and learn more about the topic, there'll be speakers and questions and answers. It's not an official proceeding of this committee or of Rehoboth Beach, but it's a public interest. Anybody wants to go.
Is he the presenter?
I don't believe so.
Okay,
I think there are other presenters.
okay. And I'm wondering, Mary, if we could make that public, like whoever this person is, that we could get from, I can't even remember the acronym, the BP.
BOEM.
BOEM, if that could, be publicized, so people could come to that meeting, I think that would be very helpful.
Yeah, well, if it's part of our environment committee, then of course it would be
Yeah,
publicized.
yeah,
and-
but just make a real point of the fact
Yeah.
that this person's going to be here.
Yeah, maybe
'Cause-
further.
yeah.
I guess right now what we do is we put a notice in the Cape Gazette of our meeting, and then there's probably a link to the agenda, but maybe if we get that and we put the notice, we could specifically
Make a big,
call it out.
make a deal
that,
of it,
that's-
right?
But, who's sponsoring the event tomorrow?
I understand it's the Fenwick Island Environment Committee, so it's an
Oh.
effort of the city fathers there.
And where is that located?
Indian River High School, which is in Dagsboro, and it starts tomorrow night, Friday night at 6 p.m. Perhaps we could call on our guests who may be knowledgeable in this topic as well. I see Mr. Stevenson here is eager to share his thoughts and wisdom with us.
Sure, if everyone's fine, we'll turn to the public. Sure, if you could just mention your name and your relationship.
Yes, my name is David Stevenson. I'm with the director for the Center of Energy and Environment for the Caesar Rodney Institute. It's a Delaware think tank. We advise policy. I live at 37524 Golden Eagle Boulevard in Lewis. I've been in Sussex County for 30 years. Family has businesses here. We do a lot of business in Rehoboth. My children have taken over. I have 7 children, 6 of them grown, and I changed careers 10 years ago to get into the policy world. So wanted to pretty much introduce myself. I made public comments that you received in February. It was 4 pages or 5 pages of footnoted information on what's going on around the country. Just to give you a little bit of information, as I said, I've been doing this for 10 years. I've consulted in 27 states besides Delaware. I've testified before the U.S. Congress. I have been invited by the White House to prepare reports that they needed information. I've done peer-reviewed studies that have been quoted pretty extensively. When Governor Youngkin was elected governor in Virginia, his staff reached out to me as a consultant. I didn't call him, he called me. Yesterday, I just did a similar consultation in North Carolina at the invitation of the lieutenant governor, and I will be one of the speakers tomorrow night. So the doors open at 5:30, starts at 6. Orsted will be on the agenda. I will be on the agenda. There is a group from the commercial fishing industry that will be speaking. A resident from the Bethany Beach area will be on the agenda. These are people that know what they're talking about, so I think if you can, it will be recorded, so if you can't attend, you'll be able to get a copy of the recording from the Fenwick Island Environmental Council. So as you may be aware, they passed a resolution asking to move the turbines further offshore. And I think they have probably sent that to you and have asked you to consider it. Let's be clear. This is a Maryland-funded, subsidized, approved project. Maryland customers will spend a lot of extra money, several $1 billion a year in extra electric rates to subsidize this. We have no impact on what Maryland does with that. The projects are being built in federal waters. We have no direct control in Delaware over that. But there's a couple of things going on. One is the key link, they have to bring the power ashore somewhere. Ocean City, Maryland was the logical place since it's a Maryland project. Ocean City has fought it tooth and nails for years. So far, they have not been overridden to bring it into Ocean City, so they've been trying to bring it into Delaware. You may remember the Blue Water Wind Project. There was a big debate in Bethany Beach when they were going to bring the power, because it's not just a matter of bringing the transmission line in, which is partially buried, but it's eventually you're going to run overhead lines and you have to build a substation. I don't know anywhere in Rehoboth that you could put a substation, but I also suspect Rehoboth would not be happy to have the power come ashore with a substation here. Fenwick Island certainly wasn't. Bethany Beach certainly wasn't. I don't know where you'd put it in Dewey. But what's been happening is DENREC has been talking about letting it come ashore in a state park. Had a big debate in 2019 about coming in at the Fenwick Island State Park. There was so much opposition, and they wanted to put it on a wetland, which is insane, and they eventually pulled that. But the current locations are, the most likely location right now is to come ashore at the Delaware Seashore State Park, just south of the bridge, and they would bury the line underneath the bathhouse, the beach, the parking lot, cross Route 1, and then there's transmission lines that would take it south to a substation just north of Bethany. But we have some leverage as to what happens. We also have Senator Tom Carper, who is our senator, who is on the Senate Energy and Public Works Committee and has some influence. And what we'd like to do is make sure that these turbines are situated further out to sea, at least 30 miles. And I'm just going to give you a quick summary of why that number. First of all, you've got the Horseshoe Crab Reserve, and I'm concerned there is no research as to how these things are going to affect horseshoe crabs. The reserve is set up because in the wintertime, the horseshoe crabs bury into the mud and the sand. And these things are going to come in with acres of stone and concrete that's called scour protection. You've got this currents that come up south to north, and plus you get storms and other things going on, and it tends to remove the sand and such forth. I mean, think about the Indian River Inlet. I think when it started, it was maybe 50 feet deep, and after the bridge was built, eventually it got to over 100 feet or 200 feet, and we had to build a new bridge. That's the kind of thing you got to worry about with these turbines. You don't want them falling over. So they've got the rocks, and they've got, and it's not only around the turbines, it's also on top of all the cables that run around in here. So I can't tell you, no one can tell you whether there's going to be an impact on the horseshoe crab, but in our view, you find out first and then you build. You don't do it the other way around. So the other thing is the visual issue on tourism. There have been a number of studies done. One was from North Carolina State University at the Outer Banks. What they did is they interviewed, well, they sent visualizations to renters from the previous summer, showed them the visualizations of what these would look like. They got 38% of the renters said in the daytime views they would not come back if they could see these turbines, no matter what the distance was. And at night, if they're lit up, 54% said they wouldn't come back. Some said they would come back if they got a lower rent. There's a University of Delaware study that was done. It was done with, it was done in a different process. What they did is they went to a firm that has a stable of people you can send surveys to. And they got their results back. They showed visualizations. And they showed with 579-foot tall turbines at, I think they started off at 15 miles. They concluded, I forget the exact number, 9% of people wouldn't come back. But then they did a second part of the survey that said almost as many people would come to see the turbines. So it was a wash. The problem is now we're not looking at 579-foot turbines. We're looking at 850-foot turbines. And what has happened before with the developers, when there's a bigger turbine available, they switch to it. It was originally going to be 600-foot turbines when Orsted started, then they went to the bigger ones. It was approved by the Maryland Public Service Commission. Well, the next version of these, which are already starting to be used in Europe, are over 1,000 feet high. So you are going to see these things. The lease area here comes within 13 miles of the beach. Now, as you go down the beach, the lease area goes further out. It's about 15 miles at Bethany, and it's about 17 miles at Fenwick. But you're at the 13-mile park. A question I have for you, I mean, you've all heard about Skipjack and how that's off. Have you heard of the Garden State project? All right, it's bigger than the Skipjack project. Skipjack project right now is 966 megawatts. That's about, I think it's about 80 or 90 turbines. The Garden State project is being funded by New Jersey and being approved by New Jersey. And the Skipjack project is going to be built from the inlet south. The Garden State project is going to be built from the inlet north. And they're planning to build 100, 120 turbines. It's a 1,200 megawatt, and it will be the one that's off your beach. And that's one of the concerns. We haven't seen maps yet of that. They haven't put in their construction and operations plan. If you know Skipjack, they're going to try and start construction in 2025. And we suspect Garden State will as well. And the reason for that is there's a 30% federal income tax credit if you have 5% of your expenses in the project by December of 2025. Wow. So there is not a project that isn't going to try and meet that. And 5% is, you got the survey ships off the coast right now. That counts towards that. You build a building for the permanent employees that are going to be around, which is not many, by the way. Skipjack is planning on 50 permanent employees once the thing is built. So it's not adding much to the economy, and it's being built, by the way, in Ocean City, not here. So we've got concerns about tourism. The BOEM, the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management, has already approved a project off of Nantucket. It's called the Vineyard Wind Project. It's about the same size as the Skipjack project. It's about 15 miles off the coast. And in the approval process, they did their environmental impact statement that you'll see for all of these, and it has become the template for all the rest. And that template says, they come up with what's called a record of decision before they actually make the decision a couple of days later. The record of decision says, gee guys, commercial fishermen are going to abandon wherever there's a lease area because they can't work in the area around the turbines. We're going to have, and these are called major impacts that have not been mitigated in any way. So this is one of the major impacts is fishermen are just, now sports fishermen, it's a different story. They're still going to go in there, but commercial fishermen will have to abandon it. They've also said that there will be more vessel collisions. There will be a problem with the Coast Guard doing search and rescue. Right now, if there's a search and rescue, you've got helicopters running pretty close to the surface of the water. You're not going to do that with these 850,000-foot turbines. So the Coast Guard itself has said this is a major impact. We're not going to be able to do this as easily. So you've got more collisions and less ability to save anybody. So there's a whole bunch of things. I won't go through the entire thing for you, but there's a whole bunch of things that were major impacts. One of the problems was BOEM did a study in 2016 where they showed visualizations to people on the beach at 8 different cities up and down the East Coast, and they were 600 feet high. And the conclusion that came by, they had 6 ratings you could use, and the worst rating was they dominate the horizon. Well, it came back that, I forget the exact percentage, but a majority of people felt it dominated the horizon at 15 miles. So what happened was, from that, New York State created a 20-mile exclusion zone. And they actually canceled a lease area off the Hamptons, which is about the same distance. It was about 12 to 15 miles off the coast, just like ours. And they said because of the visualizations, the navigation problems, the fishing problems, they canceled that lease area. And BOEM agreed. In North Carolina, there is a project called the Kitty Hawk Project. It's off of Kitty Hawk National Park. The Park Service came in and said, we don't want to see these from that big dune at Kitty Hawk. So they moved it 28 miles. They put an exclusion zone there for 28 miles. So we'd like to see the same thing happen here. And I understand you can't make that happen by yourselves, but it's like you said with the straws, you can be the leaders and put pressure to change this. We have to convince DENREC not to allow this to come ashore at a state park. That puts the whole thing on hold. We have to work with Senator Carper and try to get BOEM to create these exclusion zones. And we get rid of a lot of environmental problems and a lot of other problems if we get rid of this, get them further out. So I don't know if I finished this, but the University of Delaware study was the only study BOEM used. Now, if you read Delaware Today magazine, last February or March, the issue, there was a big interview on offshore wind. There are two authors of that study. One of the authors in the article said, because of these larger turbines, our study is no longer applicable. They basically have withdrawn the study. Not both of the authors, but one has said this is no longer applicable. That's the only study BOEM used to grant the permit. So there's all kinds of problems with all these things. We don't even get into the cost, but the cost is outrageous. But what I'd like to offer is, you're not obviously going to make any decisions today, but I can help you as a resource. I can answer any questions you have. I have tons of documents. I've actually created a multi-state coalition from North Carolina to Maine that is looking at this, other beach communities. So there's a lot of information to share. I just gave you the highlights today. But I can be a resource. I'd like you to seriously consider whether you want these 13 miles off your coast, and particularly given the fact that they're probably going to be taller than you can imagine. I mean, at 1,000 feet, you're at the size of the Eiffel Tower, to put it in perspective. Oh, and by the way, there's a big radius on these turbines. At these 20 megawatt big turbines, they cover an area 19 football fields, each turbine, 19 football fields, and the tips are moving at 200 miles an hour on a good windy day. So, these are migratory bird thrashers, I can use the term, but there's a lot of problems. And I think we need to really be thinking about this and whether it's serving Rehoboth Beach or not. And while we don't have a lot of leverage, we have some.
Now, with the Skipjack project, from what I understand, they're pretty far along. They have the lease, they have the permit, and it's all designed, and they're not really, BOEM is not considering changing the design or moving the location, as far as I understand.
No, they will have to, what BOEM will do is when the environmental impact statement is done, based on the results of that, they will say yes or no. They said yes with all these problems, and we have only touched the surface of the problems on the Vineyard Wind project. There are 5 lawsuits against that project because of things that BOEM skipped, things that they ignored. There are procedures. I mean, you see.
Where are the challenges? What court or?
It's being challenged in federal court, Federal District Court 1 in Boston.
I mean, for the one here in Delaware?
You can't sue until BOEM says yes.
Right. Yeah.
So there's no lawsuit potential here. We'd rather get Orsted to either cooperate or BOEM to cooperate with moving these further out, rather than go the legal route. That's always nasty and lengthy. But I believe, I've been involved in other litigation. I believe the courts are going to overturn the Vineyard Wind approval.
So your efforts are mostly to try and get them further offshore at this point?
Yes. Now, it's a large coalition, and there's a lot of reasons to be against offshore wind in total. But the common ground is among everybody that's against offshore wind is to move them further out at least. So, for example, in 2019, we did a survey. We found 85% of the respondents did not want these offshore turbines visible.
Yeah, I really appreciate I love horseshoe crabs, and I've worked a lot with horseshoe crabs. I didn't realize that. And I agree with you that it should be further off. I think we, in our political situation in our country, we tend to, we're either for or we're against because our present, power, the way we get our power is also extremely unsustainable and hurts us all. So I think wind power is a good alternative, but I really appreciate your concern for the environment. I just think that sometimes these public meetings get into this division,
becomes an argument.
well, I'm either for it or I'm against it, and there's, this kind of thing without let's listen to each other. Let's see where we do agree and really push that, because this is where we get caught up in our whole political system.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Senator Hansen runs the Senate Energy Committee, and she's created a panel. I'm on that panel discussion. Last year, one of the topics, this is an illustration of what we can do together. One of the topics was, we had 10, 12 years ago, we passed a law that would allow community solar. So 70% of the population in Delaware does not have access to solar. They're either in rental apartments, they don't have the sun, they can't afford it. So community solar, they can just buy into it, buy the power. And right now we can build solar for about the same cost as we can buy it from the electric grid. So, but in 10 years, we hadn't built a single community solar facility. So there was a group of us, about 15 or 20 people on the panel. We came up with a way to modify the bill. And now there's a bunch of community solar projects in Delaware. To put it in perspective, this year, Delaware requires we should be getting 23% of our power from wind and solar. Or actually what we do is we buy pieces of paper that says somebody has produced it. Only 2% of that, we only have 2% of our power coming from solar in Delaware right now with a 23%. We're buying it from out of state. So this allows it to be built in state. And I can tell you, since we passed that solar bill, this year, we're probably, by the end of this year, we will have doubled the amount of solar in Delaware. There are so many projects being built, and larger scale projects. And not only is it an advantage for the power industry, but let's say you're a retiring farmer and you got a 100-acre farm. Well, I can put 20 acres of that into a 20, 25-year solar contract, get $1,500 per month per acre, and I've just doubled my Social Security, and I don't have to sell the farm. I can lease the rest of the farm for farming, which is only $50 an acre, by the way, so 1,500 versus 50. So it may help us to preserve some of the farms that would have been lost in Sussex County because the farmer can get some income from it. So the whole thing, but it's exactly right. So my personal view is offshore wind costs 4 times to 5 times as much as onshore wind or solar. We don't have wind resources onshore in Delaware. Wind's not fast enough to build a turbine. The one at University of Delaware is built because it was given to them by the developer. But we don't really have, so our choice here in Delaware is solar or offshore wind, but it's 4 times as expensive offshore. So why do we do that? Let's invest the money elsewhere, because eventually some of those, I won't go into details right now, but we're going to see rising electric rates if they get built too, because we have to build transmission lines onshore. So I think it's a matter of finding the right solutions. So that's one. I'm also spending a lot of time right now on coming up with ways to capture the carbon dioxide in the flue gas at the power plant and use it for practical purposes. I can see a path for that to become a commodity at some point that will be a free market. 1890, we used to dump gasoline on the ground to evaporate. and then the internal combustion engine got invented, and all of a sudden we used it. I see the same thing happening with carbon dioxide. So we've got to come together and look at this, what's best for, in my case, the beach community, because I live here, my kids live here, my 20 grandkids live here, we have businesses here. I want to see this economy strong, and I see these as a threat to the economy. I see it as a threat to the environment.
Well, Mr. Stevenson, thank you for participating today, and I think we may rely on your expertise again in the future, and I hope we can reach out to do that.
Yeah, and by the way, my contacts are not as good now since the administration changed, but I used to go into meetings with the Secretary of Interior, which Boehm is part of the Interior Department. So I have a lot of contacts in D.C.
Well, great. Thank you so much. Any other?
I'll leave you. I gave you that copy before, but here's my business card.
Sure.
If you want to contact me.
Great. Yeah, and I think we do have your email from a few months ago as well. Yep. Thank you. Any?
Thank you for your time. I didn't want to dominate the conversation today.
It was very informative and very much enjoyed it. So thank you.
And this is our executive director who also lives in Lewis, John Tedman.
Thank you. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the public on wind? So I'll try to sum up. It sounds like we want to get some more information to the public about how they can become better informed and participate in public hearings and stuff. So looks like we've got some contact with Boehm, and we may be able to do that in the near future.
That sounds good.
So that's our path forward. Any other comments from the committee?
I would note that we don't need to take a position on the wind farm one way or the other.
Right.
We've just been requested to look into it. On the other hand, I'm prepared to give a counterpoint to everything that Mr. Stevenson said. As you may know, I'm vigorously in favor of offshore wind, and I think that another perspective might help clarify things. But I'm not going to do that today because I know that we have many other things on our agenda. Back to
We
you.
do, but thank you for clarifying that. Next on the agenda is a discussion about stewardship with city water fountains and use of reusable bottles. Nettie, you brought this up, and since you brought this up at the last meeting, I became informed that the city has been afforded some grant money through someone in Denrec to install 2 water fountains, which we believe will go at 2 of the restrooms. In addition to, I was informed by the interim city manager that it will be, a public water fountain will be in the plans for the new Baltimore Avenue Beach Patrol Station and restrooms. So I'm glad we brought it up and we're talking about it, but it looks like it was already in the works, which is great. And hopefully by the next meeting, I'll have a more, an update on specifics and timing.
How about I think it was Joe that brought this up, adding like a water filling, just plain water that just comes out of the shower, the showers that are.
To fill up a water bottle that you
Yeah,
mean? A
it would just
refillable water?
it would just be a separate fixture just on that pole, I guess, where you not only could do your feet and your body, but you could fill up a water bottle just with plain,
I see. So it's
tap water.
It's in addition to the shower. is
In
what you were
addition to
thinking.
the shower, just on the showers.
What do you guys think about that? Is it worth exploring, having the city explore?
Worth exploring. I think we talked about it a while ago, and there are definitely some issues with these machines and how they would fare in the climate and the conditions, but it's definitely worth exploring.
Yeah, I think any of the, I'll call them fancier machines where it counts the bottles, and I think those are all going to have to be undercovered in the restroom areas. I think what Nettie's referring to is something a little bit more primitive that is just attaches, close to the entrances to the beach.
And it would just be just for the season. I mean, those are certainly turned off, when the season's over. Whereas the bathroom, the ones that are fancier, as you say, could be operative in the shoulder system, shoulder seasons and all.
We do have a couple of the fountains here in this building, the City Hall building, that allow you to fill up your canister, your water bottle, as well as just getting a drink into your mouth. But are these the sorts of things that they're discussing, the dual sort of fountain where you could drink from the fountain and fill up your water bottle from the fountain?
Yeah, or one or the other. I mean, it'd be pretty hard to do both at the same time.
One thing that came up a while ago, and I don't know if we ever followed up on it, was that the city buys plastic, cases of water that staff can drink, and we thought that once you put these fountains in, that the city should no longer be purchasing plastic water bottles, and I don't know where that idea has gone, but maybe we should look at that again once we get our nice new fountains.
I think it'd be a great idea to bring it up right now because we already have water fountains inside this building.
Yeah, that's what I was
City
thinking.
employees can
too.
already use and fill up their own water bottles. Why should they go get a case or 2 or 5?
Yeah, and just like the gas-powered landscape equipment, it would be showing an example. It would be the city employees would, not be drinking from bottles that have to be recycled and use power.
So is that something for new business next time, Edward?
Yeah, I'll put that on the agenda for the next meeting. And I think by then, we may have some information on timing and et cetera, on when those machines will be installed. We're kind of limited on time here. So we've got the non-idling policy and pollinator gardens. I know Heather Metz was doing some of the work on research on the non-idling policy. Do we want to hold that off until the next meeting and focus on pollinator gardens? Is there a preference?
I think we should at least do one thing on the new business before we close today, so I would prefer to go to the pollinator gardens.
Okay. I agree. Take it away, Mr. Garlow.
Well, I took the liberty of sending out to you all a document, which was a draft that I'd put together, I think, previously on the topic of the pollinator gardens, which I hope you're able to pull up. Let's see. I just did that one. Here it is over here. Scroll down. Here it is, a proposal for pollinator gardens, draft that I put together, recommending that the city of Rehoboth take steps to help pollinators flourish in Rehoboth Beach so that we will be known as the butterfly capital of the beach or the butterfly capital of Delaware. Why not polish our own fingernails here? We should develop incentives to create a series of pollinator gardens in Rehoboth Beach to beautify our city and to provide habitat for pollinators such as butterflies, bees, and other pollinating creatures. Their populations have unfortunately been dropping precipitously around the world. We should do our part to help them. Butterflies and moths have caterpillars, which are vital for young birds to eat and survive. We have already seen, a haven for bird watchers in our area, so our efforts to support bird populations would be hailed. As you may know, the Delaware legislature passed a bill which bans invasive plants, prohibiting the import, export, sale, transport, etc. of plants identified as being invasive. They are no help for pollinators and thus hinder pollinators. Our city should do the same to ensure that all citizens know that this is the law. Similarly, toxic pesticides that are broad spectrum often kill pollinators. They should be phased out or banned in Rehoboth Beach if we're allowed to do that under federal law. I think there may be some restrictions on how much local laws can do in that area. These pollinator gardens could be installed in small patches currently containing grass, such as small grassy patches around the Rehoboth Beach Museum or other locations on city property. Although we hope that there will be plenty of such gardens in the future, we propose to start small and just begin with the grassy patches on the Rehoboth Avenue side of the museum. Citizens would be encouraged to do the same on their property with some sort of financial reward for planting and maintaining pollinator gardens. So I'll stop there and ask if anybody had thoughts or additions or whatever to this concept.
One thought I had, and I think I've said it before, but at a minimum, we should require any landscaping that the city itself does should be using native plants. And Newcastle County has done it, the state has done it, so there's a lot of templates to look at, and it's just simply, if the city itself is going to be planting anything, they should be planting native plants. And that's shouldn't be too difficult.
I agree with you, Mary, and I think we could be in contact with, it's not like Lewis and Bloom, but it's our garden, what are they called? Rehoboth and Bloom, thank you. But, I mean, I would think they'd be more than glad to, are you part of that? Oh, okay. But I would think they'd be more than glad to do this for the city. It would,
Oh,
kind of
Rehoboth and Bloom?
yeah,
A
Rehoboth and Bloom.
volunteer run, so asking them to take on more efforts is maybe a big burden for them. That's why I'm thinking it should be the city's efforts.
Yeah, but I mean, it would be in contact, in cooperation with them. That's all I'm
Sure,
saying.
they'd be glad to
Yeah.
have cooperation.
Yeah.
Charlie, have you had a conversation with them?
With Rehoboth and Bloom
Yeah.
on this
regarding
topic, I have not, but I'm presuming that we're not hoping to put a burden on them, but rather have this be a matter that the city
They
pushes
came
forward
to
with,
one
because
of
they're
our
already.
meetings. I don't remember what the topic was, but we had some of the leader of Rehoboth and Bloom.
Cindy Lovett?
Yeah. And she presented to us, and I don't remember whether we must have been discussing native plants, but I
I
can't
think we
remember.
were talking about, at one point, that it's not far from Dick Burns' house. You know,
triangle?
The triangle there.
Yeah.
And there was some discussion about whether there's enough
Yeah.
water. Of course, it's right in the middle of the road, and
Yeah.
just how to water that. But,
Yeah.
I mean, particularly if the city financed some pollinator plants.
Yeah, she
You
did
know,
s-
I would think that wouldn't be a burden. They're probably looking for,
Isn't
know,
there
plants.
some proposal to do a pollinator garden in the Grove Park?
Yes.
Yeah.
As I understand it, that's what the Rehoboth and Bloom folks were going to pursue. But every time you ask them to do something, they say, well, hey, we don't have enough volunteers for all of
Yeah.
that, Charlie. So,
Yeah, and also, you have to consider whether there's a water supply nearby to, and some places we do have, and other places, like the Triangle, there's no easy way, I should say, to water the plants over there, from what I understand.
Charlie, could we at least reach out to Cindy and maybe have them participate in this discussion? And not suggesting that we put the burden on them, but I think if we could get their endorsement of this, that may have some weight. Members of the public?
Carolyn Diefender for 113 Newcastle. On the one topic, you said you were going to have Liz come, maybe try to get them at the
Yeah,
same
yep.
meeting. Because I know she does use native plants and a lot of the stuff.
Yeah, I think in
So-
practice, they usually do, and we are currently adopting a new tree/landscape ordinance, and I think some of this is addressed in that new ordinance. So I think this is a good topic for Liz to weigh in as well, and I think it would be great to have some folks from Rehoboth and Bloom as well. And again, not suggesting that we put the burden on them, but at least get some of their expertise and feedback. And if we could get their stamp of endorsement on this, I think that would have some weight as we push this forward to the mayor and commissioners.
would you like me to invite Cindy Lovett to our next meeting?
I think that would be great.
I'd be glad to do that.
another comment just about the tree committee being involved. I know that Rehoboth has, I think crepe myrtles are absolutely gorgeous, but they are not native plants. And, you know, so I know the tree committee is very strict about what's allowed and what's not and this type of thing. So I would think they'd be a very crucial, you know, part of being involved in native plants.
Yeah, when it comes to trees, if people are under a legal requirement to plant a tree here in Rehoboth on on their property. They have to plant from the native list that Liz has. So they're doing well with that, but
I think you can plant other plants, but it
Can.
can't be one of the mandatory minimum
Right.
plants.
yeah, yeah. So there is there is a list of native plant trees, but I'm also thinking of things like in the circle where we have all the flowers or areas that the city maintains. They can plant native plants in those kind of public areas that the city is doing.
It's my hope that this proposal might reduce the amount of lawn mowing that goes on. Converting those lawns to pollinator gardens means less in the terms of pollution from the lawnmower engines, so they're connected that way.
Charlie, would you be fine if I send this draft proposal over to Liz and the Tree and Green Infrastructure Committee?
Absolutely, wonderful idea. When is our next meeting, so I can make sure I get that to Cindy?
It's the third Thursday of June at 10:30 a.m., which is July
16th.
the 16th.
June 16th, is that it?
Yep, June 16th.
Okay, we'll do that.
And any other, with that, is there any other, I'm sorry, I've got a meeting in 10 minutes, so,
Okay. I was wondering about the quote imminent recycling bins that are to be put up either Mother's Day or Memorial Day. They have not yet hit the boardwalk. So I'm just, are they still imminent?
I think I sent you the same message that I got from the Director of Public Works, and which I will. So, quote from the Public Works Director: "On the boardwalk for Memorial Day weekend, might go the week before to work out kinks, but advertising in time for Memorial Day." So that is the last message I received from him.
Okay, thank you. I was wondering if either I could write a letter from the committee commending those students at Rehoboth Elementary who walked from their school and presented their posters, that real pitiful posters, but we did put them up. I don't know if you all saw them, but they were. I mean, it was the best they could do at that point. But you know, as commending them and giving some reinforcement to Rehoboth Elementary School for the students taking a step for this. It was extremely frustrating for them. But I'm wondering if maybe.
Anyone have an objection to that?
Nope.
No,
Yeah.
I think that's great. If you could
From
do
the
that.
Environment Committee. It would be even better, of course, if the mayor would write such a letter. But,
I will encourage him to do so.
but if he can't, I'd be glad to. Yeah. Thank you.
With that, any other committee member comments? Okay, our next meeting is June 16th at 10:30. Any final citizen comments? All right, well, I am going to adjourn the meeting at 11:37 a.m. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well done.